The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 69.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Creevy, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. As I said, I'm Mike Creevy, but I'm filling in as host tonight for Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, who is currently gallivanting about at an undisclosed location somewhere in the galaxy, but we know he's with us in the Force. Just a reminder to please be sure to share the podcast on Twitter or Facebook and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. It also helps to get us seen by more people who would be interested in listening to our show. Today we're continuing our series of character-devoted episodes, and we will be taking a deeper look at one of the coolest characters in the galaxy. And joining me today on the panel are Andrew Hermes. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Pretty good. And second up, we have Angela Cialana. Hey, Angela.
Well, hello there.
So the three of us are excited, I think, for this tonight, and it'll be a fun conversation for sure. But before we get into that, we have two pieces of news. First of all, of course, the Bad Batch. Big news. Bad Batch starts streaming on Disney Plus on Star Wars Day, actually, May 4th. So we're going to be reviewing that on the podcast as it streams. So that's not too far away. I'm sure you guys are excited for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I'm trying to do the no spoiler thing. I haven't really gone looking, so I'm just going to stick to that. So, and the second piece of news, and like I was saying before we recorded, I don't know that he'd want me to share this necessarily, but it's Father's birthday this week.
Yep.
And that's why he's not here actually with us tonight. So he's out doing Disney and I think Galaxy's Edge, maybe even on his birthday, which I think at the time of this recording, I'm pretty sure his birthday is tomorrow, on Monday the 8th. So definitely keep Father in your prayers and wish him a happy birthday if you can reach out to him. And I actually did a little digging. I didn't have time to necessarily do as cool of a surprise as he's done for us before. But I did manage to find a little YouTube clip of Darth Vader singing Happy Birthday on behalf of the Benevolent Empire. So we're gonna cut over here real quick for this little birthday message to Father.
The Empire wishes you a happy birthday. And now we will sing. Me, 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 me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
And you gotta love that.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah, very concerning. I don't know if that's the kind of person
At least it's
you
not
want.
Kylo
Dark Lord of
Ren.
the Sith. Yes, yeah. So. Well, I want to give a disclaimer here up front as we sort of switch things out with our normal hosting details here. I'm just going to give a real big upfront shout out to Father for all his hard work because like 82, if I'm going to be generous, 80 to 90% of most of what I'm going to say tonight probably is directly from Father's notes. So I don't want to plagiarize our dear host here. So a lot of this definitely comes from Father Fett. And we are, of course, tonight talking about none other, and I'm going to give his full name. You guys ready? Landonus Balthazar Calrissian, otherwise known as Lando. So Lando. Was it? Did you find out? I don't know. Was it John Kasdan who? Like, whose idea was it to give him to give him a middle name, a full first name and a middle name?
I don't know.
I don't know if you saw that anywhere.
I have no idea, but it just totally makes sense. Yeah.
I didn't know until I looked up the Wikipedia page. I was like, a full name? Come on. So this is just real quick.
I just know that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The name of Lando Calrissian, that was one of the reasons that Billy Dee actually took the job. I mean, besides the fact that he got to work with Irving Kershner, and George Lucas, but I know that watching a couple old interviews with him, he was like, I heard that name and how could I not?
It's a mysterious name. There's something about it. Yeah. Well, let me just give real quick the character overview here, and then we're just going to jump right into your guys' general thoughts on him. So this is from what Father had typed up here. So Lando Calrissian may have come late to the fight against the Empire, but his role in destroying the second Death Star cemented his reputation as a hero. In his youth, Lando was a sportsman seeking a fortune at the sabacc tables. After he lost his beloved Millennium Falcon to Han Solo, Lando spent years living the high life and pursuing get-rich-quick schemes with uneven results. Definitely. So he went semi-respectable as the Baron Administrator of Cloud City, only to be drawn into the fight against the Empire. After a personal tragedy, Lando sought solace in isolation on Pasaana, unaware that the galaxy would need him again. So that's sort of his overall character overview background. But let me just kick it to you guys. What do you think just of Lando in general as a character?
Andrew, go first.
Okay. I think he's a character, a lot like Boba Fett, where he's he's had a little more screen time than Boba Fett, before the Mandalorian series came out. But, he's one of those minor characters where you're not really sure what side he's on. You can't trust him at all. But he does everything with such like style, with a certain, cadence and swagger that you can't, but love the character. And, having, having two brilliant actors to play him, and Billy Dee Williams and Donald Glover. Just perfect casting for the role. Guys who just embody that, in their everyday lives. So I think it's very little effort for them to play the character, to be honest, if you ever see them in interviews. Is this one of those characters where Star Wars just knows how to find these sort of niche, sort of like characters that might, some stick out more than others. Obviously this one would be more of the top tier, because now there's going to be a potential Lando series. It's not even potential, it's happening, right? At some point. So he's so cool. That's to put it simply. When you think of Lando, you think like, gosh, he's so cool. But at the same time, you can't really call him a hero. You can't really call him a bad guy either. It's like he's just one of those guys where, at the end of the day, you want him on your side rather than not on your side, right? So, I think the appeal comes from really his style and the way he does anything and the sort of mystery that surrounds him.
Okay, so I had you go first because I've gone like this. I think preparing for this episode has put me in like a crisis or something. Like I was sitting, doing my notes and I was like, do I like Lando? Like, I think I always just assumed like, of course I like Lando because everybody likes Lando, because he's fun and, but when I stopped and thought about it, I was like, I remember being a little girl and watching, The Empire Strikes Back for the first time and I didn't like him because he was a snake. He was like charming and, very sort of like, yeah, exactly what you were saying, like mysterious, unpredictable, don't know what he's going to do. And then he betrays them, but then he's like, I'm sorry. And then, so I just remember not liking him. And I have a bias against men that are very kind of braggadocious and use swagger and that type of thing. That totally turns me off anyway. So I have to say that. Yeah.
Right.
So this whole, getting ready for this episode, I was just like, I was having a heart-to-heart talk with my husband. Like, am I going to go on this podcast and say that I don't like Lando Calrissian? But I will say that I did renew, the source content and everything, and I have come to the conclusion that I neither like nor dislike Lando Calrissian. So that is my general overview for now. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it's funny because that really mirrors, I think, a lot of what Father had down in his notes and what I was kind of thinking ahead of time without us having compared our notes. And I was talking to my brother-in-law actually before we started filming tonight, telling him what we were gonna do here with the recording and filming. I'm seeing you guys. They're not seeing us probably, no, but to record. And I said, yeah, we're doing a show on Lando, and it was funny because it was like, it's like we're immediately on the same page where it's like the same kind of thing, and we're both kind of standing there like, Lando. I was like, I was like, yeah, that Lando, I love him, and I'm like, but do I? I don't know. And so what I immediately thought of, like, just when I was prepping, I was getting a lot of images in my mind of, scenes with it, like particular aspects, especially from Empire Strikes Back, that I'm sure, and you guys definitely speak to this too, maybe, but when they're walking, like they meet right out there on the landing pad,
mm-hmm.
They walk inside. And, they go and like, there's not a whole lot of scenes that happen, right? And then they're walking together to, yeah, I'm giving you the tour. And like, I don't know. Every time I see it right before they get to the door and he's saying, I've just made a deal with the, that'll keep the Empire out of here. He doesn't really seem to be remorseful.
No,
like there's no, absolutely, like, he's not smiling about it, like he's happy it's happening, but it's like he's one step back from that almost. It seems like, haha, check this out. Because even I still get that, like, I know what's coming, but I still get a little bit of that, anticipation every time I see that scene. And Vader's just in there waiting, and it's just like, you dirtbag. Like, how could you do that? So yeah, I think that definitely sets up our conflict here. And let me just kick it back to you guys here, because that is the first thing we want to look at more specifically is what makes him a good hero / villain. And this is, I think, the first time we've asked that question in this character series where we didn't just flat out say one or the other. So maybe both. What do you guys think?
I would say he's a scoundrel. I think that's sort of like the third category, like in Star Wars, right? You've got the heroes, the villains, and then you've got like the scoundrels that are sort of part of the story, but they don't really take a side. Upon reflection more and more as we're doing these shows, I tend to see that there actually are several people that, whether, at one point or another, they take a side, but really, can you assign them to like good or bad? Is a big question. And I think what makes him just a successful character in general is that uncertainty, that unpredictability about his character. Even getting into episode 6, where he's obviously part of the rebellion, he still has, that kind of spice, like to his, for lack of a better word, to his character. And he keeps things interesting. As I was watching the interviews with Billy D, he described him as cavalier. And I think that that is a good word to put on it. Very much someone who is in it for themselves, yes, but also at, you know, towards the end of his arc, like we learn about him, right, kind of in the middle of his story. But if you go to the beginning, when you watch Solo, for example, then you get to see that he really was very much in it for himself. He was a cheater, you know, as a gambler even. And he was making all these deals. And I think it goes to what you were saying, Mike, where he made this deal to keep the Empire out of Cloud City, and it was like a good deal until it went sour. And it seems to happen with him a lot. So I think just that sort of up and down of his character, the way that his character development kind of goes until we get to, of course, episode 9, and he's the ultimate good guy, right? He's like the grandpa good guy, cavalier kind of explorer dude. I think that is the key part of his character that makes him a good character.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. And yeah, it's hard to call him a hero or a villain. I would say, like you mentioned, by the end of his arc, like in Rise of Skywalker, he's, part of the hero's journey. He played his part, in the in the victory in the end. And but yeah, if you go back, and again, I'll say he's just so suave, and the ambiguity that surrounds, like, we don't know much about like his past. So I mean, we get into it a little bit in Solo, but I mean, unless you get into the comics or the books that I'm not even too familiar with about his backstory, we don't know much about him. So again, it's that mystery. It's like we don't know where he really comes from. We know he's like a Renaissance man. We know he's well traveled. He's been everywhere. A lot of the decisions he makes, and whether it feels like a betrayal, to what he did to Han, and you could argue that he makes just pragmatic decisions. Like a lot of them are selfish, or he's just looking out for himself or for his own friends, his own crew. But you can always, the reason why he can't go either way is like there's always some sort of justification for the decisions he makes, and that's why he can always come back, because like people like Han especially, obviously, and Leia in the end, like they understand him. Like they know they can, at the end of the day, they can rely on him. If they need something done, he's like the guy that has all the connections or can pull off the move that they can't, because it requires some dirty tricks of their sleeves. I mean, he's the ultimate guy with dirty tricks up his sleeve when it comes to the Star Wars universe.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
He's got the cards up his sleeve when he's gambling.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's again, all of that, it like Angela said, it just makes him a good character. It can't pin him to one side or the other, and like I said, at the end, maybe he ends up being a hero, if that's really the last we see of old Lando, if that's the end of his story that we see. He went out a hero, but yeah, we'll see if this series eventually comes out, how they paint him and how that changes, if anything, the way we see that character. But as of now, it's he's a scoundrel. That was a good one. That's a good word, I guess, Angela. I like that one. We'll stick with it.
Well, and let's we can kind of dig in here a little bit more to the character development piece of that, of how they really establish this, because this is sort of the next thing we had down on the agenda here today, and it's funny because that's really the way he's introduced. I personally, I think it's neat. If you go back and watch them, obviously, if we watch Solo first, you get that kind of background chronologically, but. I know for me, probably for most fans too, I think the best way into his character is through Empire Strikes Back, and how you have this desperate situation where Han and Leia, they're trying to escape after all this stuff's been going so wrong, and just I love all the hijinks, of course, that show up throughout Empire Strikes Back of just they can't catch a break, and all this stuff, and just really at the end of their rope, cycling through, okay, where are we? Like you get the impression Lando would not have been Han's first choice to go to. At least that's the impression I get. If he had another option. And he's cycling through and he's like, oh, here you go, Lando, And then just the way he introduces him to Leia, he's a gambler, he's a card player, smuggler, a scoundrel, you'd love him. There's like right off the bat, there's like this anticipation a little bit. Han, of course, giving the impression that they're close. But even that's my favorite line. And then I'll see what you guys think about this. What about the fact that, she says, do you trust him? And right away he goes, no, he is my friend. Like the idea of like think what you're asking, Leia. Who's the kind of person who's my friend? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Right. Like even Han's like, yeah, do you think that you can trust someone that hangs out with you? Yeah, so there's that self-deprecating thing there too with Han, and that's something Father had down here too from some of the sources he had been looking at that really set this neat image of Lando right off the bat is kind of like a foil for Han, but like kind of like an amoral one, so that Han does seem to have some kind of core principles. Lando doesn't really seem to have those. So what do you guys think about that?
I think I would push back on that a little bit, because as episode 5 goes on, he really starts to take, issue with what the Empire is doing. Like, well, no, this wasn't part of our deal. This wasn't part of our deal. Putting Han in the carbonite, freezing chamber, he was like, you can't put him in there. We use this for stuff. This isn't for him. And so you start to see that that Lando does actually care, but it takes a little bit to see that. Again, I think when part of Lando's character is that he likes to feel like he is in control of his situation, like he has anticipated how things are going to work out with the deals and the, especially if you look at, again, him keeping those Sabacc cards up his sleeve to win the game every time. And Han figured that out at the end of Solo. But that was kind of that's always, I think, part of his mindset is like he wants to know how things are going to pan out. And when that rug started to pull out from underneath him in 5, then you start to see his care, come through. Mm-hmm. And we saw a little bit of that also with him in L3, in Solo, right. That he had this this companionship with L3, who was very unruly, and I think that's very interesting that he was still okay with being with someone, for lack of a better term, that was very unpredictable as well. That was very unruly, and he didn't know what she was going to do. So yeah, I think that is all part of his character, and ultimately when we see that push comes to shove, he does actually have a heart. So I wouldn't say he's amoral for even the entirety of episode 5.
Yeah, I think Angela said most of it, but it always goes back to him like looking out for Han at the end of the day, even after betraying him, and like you said, Han mentioning that hey, he's my friend. It's like what I said earlier, like you want him on your side at the end of the day, like and whether it's for selfish reasons or not, he's a guy that you can count on. You think, if you can at least convince him or make a deal with him. Usually you have to make a deal. There has to be something in it for him, right? But at the end of the day, he's it comes off as a guy who's just like just trying to get by, you know? And so there's not, you know, usually with people like that, characters like that, you don't really root against them or think, you always have some sort of sympathy for them.
Right.
And, you know, the little flashes you get of his backstory, or the little things you learn about him, you know, you can sympathize with him. You can, it humanizes him, you know, a little more. And the fact that he's so damn cool makes it so easy to love him, obviously. And yeah, I would also, you know, say that he has a moral compass, and I think that he's an imperfect character, so that might make him more human than a lot of the, you know, than someone like, you know, Luke, who's just usually always good, except for a few instances that are pretty extreme, but looking back on it, but yeah, I think he's, you know, he's not going to be this like mythic hero or this symbol of good, but he's always going to be someone that's on the winning side, on the good side, more than he's not.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and you guys, I'm sure, have seen this, you know, a couple places, because I know it's a big, somewhat tongue-in-cheek controversy over Lando's betrayal of Han in Empire Strikes Back that, you know, fans talk about and debate about. And I've heard Billy D. Williams in interviews to this day very unapologetically defend Lando. Yeah. You know, it's so funny because the way he goes about it too, just saying like, look, you know, he's got all these people to look after at Cloud City. You know, he's trying to protect, and he makes a good argument, you know, in terms of and for me to push back to the way I phrased it myself even a little bit early, not so much no moral code, but not the one we want. Maybe it's like, no, you have to fight the Sith and the Empire. And it's like, well, what does Lando care? Like, his whole thing is to try to keep that out if he can. And you know, it's funny too, because Father mentioned this. I mean, just looking at some other things, like for anyone that's a fan of Rebels, I mean, like he sells Hera. You know, like he like, you know, he cheats and wins Chopper. Like he just keeps doing his thing. And, you know, you're sort of like this fan following this big picture story, but to try to sometimes maybe approach it from Lando's storyline might be kind of a fun way to kind of see what he's getting at. What do you guys think? I don't know if this is, you know, there's different ways we could go with this, but maybe you'd like to focus on Solo for a minute, because I know we mentioned a few times, but maybe just take a step back and look at like him, some of his character development. You know, we're going to get to more of the general sort of overview or overall favorite moments and qualities and those kinds of things later. But maybe we could just focus on Solo, specifically that film, and just see what you guys think about his, you know, character development or some of those same aspects of him that they pick up specifically with Solo that maybe we haven't mentioned yet. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he goes through, as I alluded to, a great deal of loss. And I think perhaps that was maybe the greatest loss that he had had up to that point in his life, that he not only lost his glorious ship, not only just by ownership, which comes later, but really just getting really banged up and letting other people fly his ship and through the maelstrom, and it wasn't pretty at all. But then, you know, going to this crazy, you know, mine, and L3 starts this revolution, all this chaos, and then she effectively dies, you know, and he can't fix her, and so he loses that friend, really, that he had. And I think, you know, at the end of Solo, not counting the sort of very end scene where the Millennium Falcon is won by Han Solo, but just going to the idea of, you know, him being all beat up. He's got like one I think, arm on his shirt, and like, of course, there's no cape, and those are probably ruined by the fires that were on the ship or something. And he loses that custom piece, like the cape that Kira uses to put out the fire on the ship. It's like, that's a custom piece. But anyway, he loses a lot during that movie. And I think it really, I think it had maybe an impact on him to where he, once we see him again, sort of in the chronological order, it is on Cloud City. And by that point, he's no longer like, oh, I'm retired from business and I'm just gambling all day. No, he's taken on a responsible livelihood, and he's a baron, and he's got a lot of credit apparently to his name. Not only based on sort of the aesthetics and the like visible, like the superficial qualities about him, but really he is taking care, like you said, that Billy Dee kind of talks about. He's taking care of a bunch of people and this whole city. So yeah, I think he definitely I never really thought about it, but I think his losses that we see in Solo probably inform that character development so that he becomes more of a person who maybe is not in it for himself so much, but then also realizes the importance of earning things and of having authentic relationships and not not using people so much to just simply have stories to tell. You remember when he was sitting on the ship while they were in the mine of Kessel, and he was just like recording like a vlog basically about his exploits and stuff.
The Calrissian Chronicles. Yes. Oh man. That's the best. Like the way that they just leave you wondering, like, how many of those are there?
Yeah. Such a tease. Short, yeah.
Right. There we were.
Yeah, I like what he says. It's one of his. I think it's one of the first lines in the movie where he says, "Everything you've heard about me is true." So, he himself, like as a character, just like relishes in the fact that you don't know anything about him, and if there are rumors said about him, the more the better. It's like it just makes him like this sort of legendary character, that he's more than human. It makes him this mythological sort of figure, and he likes it that way. So it's as the character prefers, I think, as you can tell so far, it kind of matches along with the opinions that people have of him. It's like he doesn't care what you think about him, and if you have a hard time trying to figure that out, that makes him feel all the much better about it. He tends to like it that way. But yeah, there are moments like in Solo, like again his relationship with L3. I mean, he literally risks his life to save him. After that battle on Kessel, and he I think a moment like that shows like he actually does care about, well, in this case a fellow droid friend, and he's willing to stick his neck out for him. Yeah, I mean, he put himself in that sort of danger and crossfire. So yeah, and then then you'll have a scene where he's betraying someone or cheating at the table, at a card game, and again, it just all these different layers. Just you never know where you kind of settle on him. But yeah, I think the fact that he has those moments, where he's either saving someone or participating in playing his part on the winning team, doing it on the good side, it at least gives him that much goodness to the point to where it's like, oh, he's not again, we can't just call him a villain or just a typical hoodwink. You know, he's
Right.
much more layered than that.
Well, and I think too, you know, that there, and I think we've kind of segued nicely here potentially into some of the favorite qualities portion that we wanted to get into a little bit, because you know, just thinking for myself here, I know that and again, we've talked about a couple of these already, but you know, there is something I think to be said for what one of these articles I found. This one actually Father directed me to. The title was Lando Calrissian is Star Wars' most compelling character. Now, I don't know if I'm there yet on that, but they make a good argument in there about some of what we've pointed out before, that you don't, you know, you have these archetypes which I don't think are, you know, they're not two-dimensional. It's not, you know, static. Like, there's development for everybody, you know. But there is, I think, something to be said for some of these mixed motivations. The fact that you guys know that bumper sticker, from a Christian standpoint here, especially for all of us, this what's a bumper sticker say? Something like, "Be patient with me, God isn't finished yet." Or something. You ever seen that one? Or something like that. That he really is this work in progress kind of character. So it's like, is Lando a hero? Is Lando a villain? It's like, what day is it? You know, and who are you? Because it's not to say that you know, we're going all relativist here, but it truly, like, Hera, you know, like you know what Lando's doing. You know, he's got a bigger plan, and it's like, yeah, sure, Hera, I'm just going to sell Hera, you know, to this crime boss guy. And when doesn't she like totally kick him in the groin, I think, or something?
Yeah,
she really lets him have
it's
it.
very
like,
satisfying. Yes.
But even that, like, they, you know, like, oh, Lando. But I was just gonna just before I give it back over to you guys here, I just wanted to say one thing that occurred to me when you talk about some of these scenes, like the sabacc table and stuff like that. And I really think, for me, I just got this impression now as we're talking. I think, like, for what Vader's breathing is for him, I feel like Lando's voice is, whether it's Billy D or Donald Glover, because I feel like there's a few times, significant times, where you hear him before you see him on purpose, and it's like this, you know, he's such a larger than life kind of character. I think it's like a way to do that. So the sabacc table, you know, as they're approaching in that whole big crowd, but whose voice do you hear? Right. You know, and he's there, he's in the middle, like, how far is he into that schmoozing? You know, maybe he's been there for 3 hours, like, you have no idea. And you just really, I just feel like that's such a great introduction to his character in Solo. And it reminded me of a interview I saw, I think Donald Glover was doing with one of the Jimmys. It was Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. And he said that, you know, he had met with Billy D. Williams to ask him, you know, for advice. And I just remember him saying something like, Billy D just, like, who basically is Lando, you know, just kind of kicked back, and he's like, I don't know, man, just be charming. You know, and it's just this very dismissive, like, that's all you got to do. You know, just be a schmoozer. You know, you can almost imagine him schmoozing the waitress or some guy at the table, you know, just doing that while he's telling Donald Glover how to do it. So anyway, those are just some thoughts I had about him, like some of those qualities.
Yeah, I think that's really keen observation about his voice, because when I would say, well, the episode from Rebels, episode 11 of season 1, that really features Lando, he is introduced that way, that he and Zeb, well, you see Zeb playing sabacc with somebody at a table, and the other person is shrouded in sort of shadow, and then you hear Billy D's voice, and then you see him kind of lean forward into the light. And so I agree, that's definitely his character, one of his characteristics. I think the other one is his smile. I think is probably very characteristic of Lando. And then of course the capes, right? I think the cape is probably my favorite quality about Lando.
Seems like it's his favorite quality of himself. No.
Yes. I was reading an interview with Donald Glover, and it's he points out something cool. He's like he is more of like highbrow, and Han Solo is more lowbrow. You know, he and that's again, it's because of his style. You know, the way he dresses himself, and you know, again, the capes and all that, and the way he just holds himself and presents himself. You know, even though he's into all this like debauchery and and all this like all these criminal activities, and all that sort of stuff, he does it with such class that you can't help but love it. And it's like he's just, whenever he's on screen, you know, it's like he's inviting you into his world, you know, because he just owns pretty much every scene that he's in. And you're just glad to be there, you know, for the ride. And yeah, it takes actors like Billy Dee Williams and Don Glover to sort of pull that off. And again, the word I like to use for him, one of the many words, is suave. And yeah, there's not, I mean, I can't think of another Star Wars character that you can kind of describe with that word, at least in a serious sense, or in a major one. So he really stands out from the bunch, and I think that you know, adds like a flavor to Star Wars that, you know, I don't think any other character, you know, it's pretty unique to him. And it's not like he needs an accompanying, you know, performance beside him or another character that kind of is like a Lando ripoff. Like he is like the one Lando, like in Star Wars.
Well, and I wonder with some of the, and I didn't look into this, so I'm just kind of, this is off the top of my head, but I wonder, and if you guys know, you know, feel free to let me know here, but I kind of feel like you think of all those influences that, you know, George had, that we all, you know so well, as far as, you know, the samurai influences, the, you know, Joseph Campbell stuff, the you know, the serial sort of, you know, Buck Rogers, like all those kinds of things. And you know, that old timey kind of classic Hollywood, you know, because you figure Empire comes out in 1980. The weird thing I think for me sometimes is to realize that like World War II was as close to 1980 as 1980 is to now, you know, so you don't have to go back as sometimes I have to do that mind jump. It's like that was very retro for them, but it was still kind of accessible. It was still sort of in the memory of maybe like some of the older fans and stuff like that, like George himself. And I'm wondering, like, you know, you're kind of Clark Gable, you know, like really smooth, and, you know, just some of the style things, and like even someone like Cab Calloway, I think of, you know, like that jazzy, like there's just it's like there's a jazz element to it. There's like just a cool, like you said, you know, suave, all of that is so just, he exudes it, you know. And I think it's hard to tell how much of that, you know, is in the script or you know, written into this character ahead of time, and how much of it's just Billy Dee, you know, how much of it is like Billy Dee and Donald, you know, like unlocking the potential of this character you just sort of sketch out. So I'm sure it's probably a combination of some of those things. Well, I'll tell you what, let me jump here to, what do you guys think about something else I wanted to bring up, that Father had put down, but parallels, but maybe we could look at for just a minute or so here, parallels between Lando and Han. And we've talked about some of them, but this is one he threw in here that I want to jump it up to. This would touch more like the sequel trilogy, where he's obviously not there very much. We just see him in episode 9, but the parallels between, and I'm sure some of this probably connects to some of the books and stuff too, because I'm not as familiar with this, but the tragedy, you know, the tragedy of Han and Leia with Ben / Kylo, and then the tragedy that I don't really think we get anything in the movie that much from it, but apparently it's what I'm seeing here is, I guess, canon about, you know,
it's not in the movie,
right, about, you know, they hint at it at the end, but namely with Lando having lost a daughter, having a daughter kidnapped by the First Order, who they at least strongly hint at the end of Rise of Skywalker is Janna, but like, I guess that's confirmed somewhere from what I'm seeing, a couple references to that. If I'm wrong on that, my apologies. But everywhere I looked, it seemed to be somewhat confirmed in books or comics or novelization or something.
Yeah, I think when the movie came out, it was still ambiguous, but I think it was one of those like retcon things that they did, you know, like after the movie came out to try
they don't
and
do
like,
that, do they?
Yeah. Never. But yeah, I think after the, you know, I don't know, I would say at best, the mixed reactions to Rise of Skywalker, they did a lot of stuff like that where they tried to retcon a few things that, you know, were either not clear or fans wanted answers to, and that was one of them. So I think it was confirmed.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys what you think about it. Maybe it's all speculation, but just for the heck of it, you know, how might that, you know, fill in some of the gaps between, because he definitely seems far more like family and team oriented and like cause oriented in Rise of Skywalker than he did earlier. And I just wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the impact that Han and Leia had on his life. I think you get the sort of hint that, you know, he was in obviously some sort of communication with Han and Leia all those years and in between, and I think that, you know, they obviously had some sort of, you know, judging by, you know, what he did in Rise of Skywalker, you know, obviously he again he played on the hero side and did nothing but good things. I don't think he did any sort of like typical Lando stuff in Episode 9. But yeah, he was basically a hero for at least that film. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think this little wrinkle, well, I guess it's a big one, where this is potentially his, you know, he has a daughter that was kidnapped, and then he talks to or he gets to, you know, what was the line at the end of the film? It was like, oh, let's figure out like your history or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
she brings up, and he's like, you know, let's figure it out.
Let's do it let's figure it out together, right? Yeah. So it was a nice moment. Yeah, I mean, it again, it's a huge thing where it tells you like, oh, well, he does have like skin in the game. He does have like a bone to pick with, at least with the, you know, the First Order, and because of, you know, kidnapping his daughter, I would think would leave an effect on him. So I don't think he would be asking for many favors or doing any deals with the First Order. Where I think with the Empire, he had no problem like cutting deals with, you know, with rebels or the Empire. So yeah, I think it changes things in that sort of sense.
Yeah, I would say it's plausible. What you just put forth, Andrew. I think I just interpreted it, you know, his demeanor in Episode 9 as the product of being part of the rebellion, I think, for as long as we knew that he was. And then he mentions that he was with Luke to hunt down that Jedi hunter or to follow the Jedi hunter. And so he was, I mean, I just assumed, you know, that was why he was a team player, and that's why he was still invested, that, you know, he had kind of found his new tribe. So, but certainly, you know, it could be plausible, and I think it'd be a very interesting story. I'd like to hear more about what was Lando up to between 6 and 9, you know. Right.
Yeah, it's a very compelling question because, well, he's a self-proclaimed galactic entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I'd like to have that on a business card, quite frankly. I just think that really, like, what does that even mean? It's a little bit, you guys, like in Hitch, this when Will Smith describes vaguely, like in that one date to his, you know, to Eva Mendes's boss or whatever, and his wife, they're out and about, and he's, you know, Hitch, what do you do? And I don't even remember what he says, but he says something, and they're like, I have no idea what that means. He's like, nobody does. That's why I can charge so much. Like, I feel that's like right. To me, that's the kind of thing that, like, I feel like Lando would do that. And I just really appreciate that, you know, even though he's up to no good a lot of the time, there is, I think, something charming almost about, he's somehow not, in a way, he's not duplicitous. Like he really, that's what he's always like. You know, it's like you have the real Lando. And if you know that about him, you can kind of, you know, roll with him to some degree, you know, and I think that's exactly where Han's at. You know, Han, oddly, I mean, Han falls for the thing, right off the bat at Cloud City. But other than that, you kind of get the impression that he kind of knows what to expect. And this was just, I found this, I'm going to share very quickly from, I think it's from the Last Shot novel, that the character Kasha Batine says, I mean, he was brave, sure, but always in the service of saving his own hide or profit. But I had also detected that deep down, behind all that smooth talking and those well-ironed capes, there was a whole human being with a conscience and a desperate need to do something worthwhile with his life. And I thought, that's pretty well said, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about, as we get a little close to the end of the show here, as far as lessons learned and maybe favorite moments? Maybe we can kind of tie them in together from all across, everywhere he shows up that you might want to mention. Anything in particular that strikes you about, his role in the greater franchise? Any sort of takeaways for your any fan kind of when it comes to Lando? Any favorite moments as well? That's all fair game.
So I have a couple of things, but to sort of summarize the first one, one lesson that we can learn very quickly from Lando and his situation is how you cannot he cannot make a deal with a terrorist, basically. You can, but I think that goes for not just like, the Empire, but anybody who is abusive or controlling. You can't try to, just sway them through the methods that you've always used. I think that's a very timely and continuously a good lesson. So, but the other thing that's part of my favorite moments is actually in episode 9. And I was surprised when I was kind of trying to figure out what is one of my favorite Lando moments. And it was actually when Poe is looking at the whole, all these Star Destroyers, when they are at the very end of the movie and, the rebellion is trying to help out Ben and Rey, and it's really not going well at all, and everything just looks like they are going to fail, and Poe just looks out from his cockpit and he says, there's so many of them. And then you hear Lando's voice come over, I guess his radio, and says, but there's more of us, Poe, there's more of us. Mm-hmm. And that was a key lesson in that movie, was that we've talked about before, but the idea that, a lot of times people that are controlling, that are manipulative, that are abusive, they want to make you feel like you're alone, that there's nobody else that you can turn to, that there's no way out. But I think Lando's role in episode 9 was being that advocate, being that wise voice to say no, like we won the rebellion because we had each other. And then using that line at the end, there's more of us. And I think it was very intentional using that word us. So that was, I think, one of my favorite Lando moments for sure.
How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that sticks out, and I think after hearing that, I guess Lando has a big moment at the last film of, the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, where in the original trilogy, he blows up the second Death Star. Right. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's obviously a moment that sticks out. I like in Solo, where he's getting into it with Han about the Falcon, and it's the where Lando says, "I hate you," and then Han says, "I know." So a callback to the "I love you, I know" line, obviously. And yeah, just hearing them, just their exchanges about the Falcon and their sort of obviously love-hate relationship. But at the end of the day, they're still, they're friends, or they can at least see each other eye to eye. I love again the Calrissian Chronicles sort of thing. Him on the him recording himself was really cool. Oh gosh, there was one more I think I was thinking of, but you know what? I'll let you, Mike. I'll let you go.
I was going to ask you, was it the boot by any chance on the in the impound?
No, it was not.
No, because I love.
But that is a good one.
I love that. You know, that for some reason, the build up to that and having you know, Tobias Beckett step up. Like I love the way he and Beckett, you know, like he tries it, you know, but it just doesn't work. Yeah. But and like Beckett just keeps cutting his percentage down, and he's just like he gets all in his face, and he's like, I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I accept it. And like shakes his head. Like he's just like, you're catching on, Lando. You know? But yeah, there was a few fun moments like that. I think my favorite moment in Solo, one of them, it's like top 3, is when because for me it's like you watch that whole big dramatic build up with Enfys Nest showing up, you know, and they're having that conversation, or actually before the conversation, and Han, you know, very confident, like steps out and he starts down that whole bluff thing. You know, we've got, you know, I forget what he says, like, you know, 30 armed guards and that, you know, and then all of a sudden the Falcon just lifts up and just takes off, you know, and you don't even have to see him. Away. Yeah, like, like it's, you know, and like I kind of had just forgotten. I think the first time I saw it, like you almost forget Lando's back on there. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's just out, you know, and Han just like steps back and he's just like, go ahead. Yeah. You know, that didn't work.
Yeah.
So those were just some of mine, and you know, you guys mentioned some of the other ones for sure from the original, but I mean, maybe to end on my last one real quick, just as far as like the hero villain thing, I think, yeah, when it really matters, and I just love what really hit me was in that last battle in Return of the Jedi, they're understandably Akbar and them, like they want to retreat. Mm-hmm. You know, this was a huge military deception operation. This is we can't let's get out of here. And like Lando's willing to let others and even himself perhaps die, you know, to give, as he calls him, Han, more time. By the way, I almost introduced you guys as Angela and Andrew, but I decided.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the only other thing I wanted to mention about that. Just the. That's pretty bold, right? You know, willing to sacrifice yourself if it comes to it. You got to give him more time because he's going to do it.
Right. He did have faith and trust that they would bring the shield down. So, yeah.
And Father had down here, even just an ordinary guy can choose to do the right thing, to be a hero, and go contrary to selfishness to save others. You know, so, and then he referenced that stronger together line as well from Rise of Skywalker. So, well, I'll tell you what, we're getting close to about an hour here. I want to just maybe ask you guys kind of in closing, just any wrap up stuff, any general observations about Lando, final thoughts on the character.
I still have mixed emotions about him, but I do think after talking about him with you guys, I have a deeper appreciation for Lando. And I think my favorite Lando in anything is definitely that Rebels episode. I think it's called An Idiot's Array. And it really displays his character very well. So maybe that's just a teaser. If anybody is looking for more reasons to get into Rebels, you don't need to know anything really about the overarching story to watch that episode. And it has the classic puffer pig. So if you don't know what that is, that's pretty comedic. So I'd say go check out, was that season 1, episode 11, I think.
I think so, yeah. All right, Andrew, any last thoughts on Lando?
I'll just add that, again, I hope Donald Glover comes back for the series that's coming out. I'm sure that's the plan that they have. You know, I'm sure they'll throw whatever money they can at him, but to make sure they get him, because I can't see anyone else playing a young Lando other than him, and I can't wait for that series to come out. So I'm looking forward to more Lando stuff.
Okay, very good. Well, that's it from us. what are your thoughts and opinions on the rogue Lando Calrissian? Was he a hero? Was he just a guy trying to make his way in the universe? By the way, these are some of Father's notes. We can't rule out a Jango Fett reference in there a little bit, right? What are your favorite aspects of Lando? Is there a character that you want us to talk about on future shows also? So let us know. Be sure to email us a comment on our Facebook or Twitter page and let us know. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com and find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Star Wars, including Christy W., Raymond L., Jasper G357. I hope that's your real name, by the way, because that's awesome. Debbie A. and Alexander P. And now actually is a great time to become a StarQuest patron thanks to a generous gift from a StarQuest supporter. When you start a new Patreon monthly pledge at sqpn.com/give, the first 3 months will be matched by an equal amount from our donor. So if you become a new patron at $10 per month, after 3 months, our donor will give $30 to StarQuest to support all our shows, including this one, making your gift go even further. If you've been thinking of becoming a StarQuest patron, now is the time. Visit sqpn.com/give today. One other big update we have for everyone is that now you can get the new official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt. That's right. We now have a new t-shirt for listeners of the show that encapsulates our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away. Available in various styles and sizes, get your shirt at sqpn.com/merch. That's sqpn.com/MERCH. Also be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. We will be back in 2 weeks to continue our character series by taking a deeper look into, drumroll, the Jedi Knight Qui-Gon Jinn. That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
So until then, Angela Cialana, thank you so much for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
My pleasure.
Andrew Hermes, thank you as well.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And once again, I'm Mike Creevy in for the one and only Father Fett. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Hello, what have we here? Angela, Thomas, Mike, Andrew, and everyone listening, Billy D here. Happy Life Day. Thank you all for being fans of mine and the Star Wars franchise. During this holiday season, I'm wishing you all the blessings and happiest of times, as you all truly belong here with us among the clouds. May the Force be with you.